I'm Liz Faubles, and this is Currents. As New Jersey lawmakers prepare to consider a bill to legalize same-sex marriage, we'll talk with a group that opposes the measure. Plus, jobs and the economy may be on many voters' minds, but could one candidate's faith be a factor in the primaries?
I do think in terms of religious issues or spiritual issues, they go to the issue of character.
And less than a week before the second anniversary of the earthquake in their homeland, Haitian Catholics come together to help their own cause.
Come together closely as a tight-knit. We get to see one another, and we get to see what we have to offer to the community.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Well, just 6 months ago, New York's state legislature voted to legalize same-sex marriage, and now the issue will likely come up for a vote in New Jersey. Democratic lawmakers there announced a bill that would give same-sex couples in New Jersey the right to marry. Now, the New Jersey State Catholic Conference has repeatedly spoken out against such efforts. In a statement from 2009, they said that Catholics must not abandon the church's teachings on marriage or stay silent on the issue. The church teaches that marriage is the union of one man and one woman. Well, earlier today, I had a chance to hear from another group opposed to same-sex marriage. And we are speaking with Deacon Len Dio. He is the executive director of the New Jersey Family Policy Council. Deacon Dio, thank you very much for joining us.
Liz, it's my pleasure to be with you today.
Okay, well, you know, I really want to get right to the issue with you, which is a measure to fully recognize same-sex unions as marriages formally introduced. New Jersey Democrats spearheading that marriage bill, that marriage equality bill, and they're looking to enact it as early as this month. Now, your agency has said more than half the people statewide don't want to see marriage redefined. Your thoughts on the latest initiative?
Well, we're very concerned about it. We truly believe that ultimately we'd like the people to weigh in on this as they have done in 31 other states. And when there's been a ballot initiative or some way for the people to voice their opinion, marriage has always won. So the thing that's very disingenuous about the Democratic leadership that are pushing this bill is the fact that civil unions were enacted here in the Garden State and became law in 2009. And really, the civil unions are doing what the legislation intended.
You know, now that you mentioned civil unions, I want to have a quote read to you. Marriage equality is not about religion, it's about civil rights. And that quote is from Senate President Steve Sweeney. Now, how do you address this assertion? And where does the issue of gay marriage, in your opinion, belong? Is it a social, religious, or legal matter?
Well, basically, the issue itself is not a civil rights issue. In fact, I was in a courtroom when this started way back in 2002 in Judge Linda Feinberg's courtroom in Superior Court in Mercer County. And Judge Feinberg said, and there were many lesbian and gay partners, couples that were in the courtroom, and she said to them, "You have the right to marry right now in the state of New Jersey a person of the opposite sex." So essentially what you're looking for is a special right to marry a person of the same sex.
I want to bring this a little bit closer to home. This just passed in New York in June. Does that particular instance give this bill momentum in your opinion? And would it look like the New York bill?
Well, this bill is identical to the bill that was in the legislature last time. The only difference that I would say is, yes, to the question of it probably is giving a little bit more momentum, but however, New York did not have civil unions where all the rights of marriage that are given to heterosexual couples have been granted in New Jersey to same-sex couples. And if we look at what has happened, the New Jersey Civil Rights Commission has afforded gay couples that have formed civil unions, if they believe that their civil union is not being honored by an institution or an insurance company or whatever, or a business, they can file a complaint with the New Jersey Civil Rights Commission. A little over 5,000 civil union couples. To date, only 15 complaints have been filed, 12 have been rectified, and 3 are still open and understanding. If if I was a legislator, I'd look at that and say, you know what? Civil unions are doing what they intended to do.
And Deacon Dio, very quickly, I really want to get this point in. As you know, we are in the thick of the primaries, New Hampshire. We're off to South Carolina soon. Your governor, Chris Christie, on the road with Romney. Do you think this would hurt his chance at being named a vice president?
Well, I'm hoping that Chris stays here in New Jersey for obvious reasons. I think he's good for the Garden State. I don't think this issue, if it passed, he has stated on the record that he would veto a same-sex marriage bill because he has said that he believes that marriage is the union of one man and one woman, and that if something, and I'm quoting him now, if something of this magnitude is to change, that the people should weigh in on it.
Okay, thank you very much. Deacon Len Dio, Executive Director of the New Jersey Family Policy Council, joining us today. Thank you for your thoughts.
You're welcome.
Well, there is much more on this straight ahead. How will the issue of same-sex marriage affect the presidential election? We'll have that and hear what voters think about the faith of one of the GOP candidates. Next. Welcome back. Well, at a press conference today, New Jersey Senate President Stephen Sweeney said he expects the battle over a bill to legalize same-sex marriage to be with Governor Chris Christie and not inside the state legislature. Well, Christie has voiced his opposition to same-sex marriage and said he would veto any measures to legalize it. Christie is considered a potential running mate for Mitt Romney, the current frontrunner among Republican presidential candidates. And this weekend, it was Romney clarifying his stance on same-sex marriage. The former Massachusetts governor stated that he was opposed to it, but will not discriminate against people with same-sex attraction. Romney is favored to win tonight's New Hampshire primary, but in the next battleground state, it's not clear whether he will get the support of a key voting bloc. CNN's David Mattingly has more on that.
We're singing redemption songs.
The road to the Republican nomination runs through here, South Carolina's congregations of evangelical Christians. This is where 4 years ago, Mitt Romney was buried in 4th place.
Mormonism, is that the elephant in the room for Romney?
Obviously, I think it's an issue, probably similar to Catholicism for John Kennedy 50 years ago.
Greg Surratt is pastor of one of the state's biggest megachurches. And among these born-again Christians, there are deeply held opinions about Romney's faith and the question, are Mormons Christians?
Show of hands for people who think they are not. Is that going to affect how you view him as a candidate?
We can't be one issue type of people. We have to broaden our viewpoint in some form or fashion. I do think in terms of religious issues or spiritual issues, they go to the issue of character.
In this election, evangelical voters here say that character and conviction matter more to them than a candidate's denomination. Surprisingly, social issues barely come into the conversation at all.
Economies.
The budget.
Small businesses.
Does that mean that the wallet is taking the place of the Bible when it comes to voting?
You know, that's a pretty powerful stimulus, is the wallet. I'm hoping as a believer and a leader of believers that it's secondary.
4 years in a bad economy have these voters feeling vulnerable. Ray and Cindy Farrell pray to God for relief.
Without our faith, we would be toast.
Yeah, really.
Former real estate developers, the Farrells lost their business, their salaries, their health insurance, their retirement. And the tears come easily.
Because it took away their livelihood. At one point, I thought I lost my dignity. You know, who I am. We couldn't do the things we used to do it. It was tough.
The Farrells struggle daily with their losses, and it drives their votes. Hard times leave little room for hard questions about a candidate's faith.
Is that enough to affect your vote when you're looking at Romney?
No, not for me.
Why not?
First of all, I'm not looking at a president to be the leader of my church.
But the Farrells and other evangelicals are looking for someone who will help answer their prayers. Prayers for an economic recovery and a stronger future.
And that report from CNN's David Mattingly. And stay tuned, there's more Currents ahead. A Nigerian cardinal speaks out about deadly violence in his country. We'll have that story and the rest of the day's headlines tonight on Currents. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Liz Faubles. Coming up later, Haitian Catholics gather in Brooklyn to help their own cause. First, let's have a look at the day's headlines. Well, a cardinal in Nigeria says Christians will not be forced out of the northern part of the country. The cardinal, who is the Archbishop of Lagos, tells the Italian newspaper La Stampa that the Nigerian church is strong and vital and is ready to make, quote, the ultimate sacrifice. The Islamist group Boko Haram has claimed responsibility for attacks on churches in northern Nigeria that have killed more than 80 people. Now, the cardinal says Islamic delegations have shown solidarity by visiting those churches. He says Catholics will not respond to violence with more violence. Reporter Vladimir Dutier has more on the situation from Lagos.
More violence across northeastern Nigeria. Some 25 people killed over the last couple of days, police say, by the Muslim Islamist group Boko Haram. This follows Boko Haram's attacks on Christian churches in the northeastern part of the country on December 25th, Christmas Day, which killed scores of people and left many others injured. Boko Haram then issued an ultimatum to Christians in northern Nigeria to get out. Police responded, and President Goodluck Jonathan responded by issuing a state of emergency in 4 states in the north, and yet what we've seen over the last several days is more violence, more attacks on Christians. What we haven't seen are Christians striking back at Muslims. There's a delicate balance between the northern part of the country, which is primarily Muslim, and the southern part of the country, which is primarily Christian. Delicate balance that has existed for many years between the two. If these attacks continue, though, what some people are worried about is that there could come a rift, a split between both halves of the country that could lead to some sectarian violence across the nation.
And that report from CNN's Vladimir Dutier. Well, in other news from Nigeria, a mosque and Islamic school in the southern city of Benin were attacked today. A Red Cross spokesman told the BBC that 5 people were killed and 6 more injured. Meanwhile, Pope Benedict says the international community needs to work to address violence in Nigeria, along with conflict in Syria, Jerusalem, and Iraq. Well, during an address to the 182 ambassadors to the Vatican, Benedict says part of the answer lies in educating future generations. In that address, the Pope also said new rules are needed to address the world financial crisis. The pontiff also spoke of religious freedom, something he called a fundamental right of all people.
Trop souvent, pour des motifs divers, ce droit est encore limité ou bafoué. Je ne peux évoquer ce thème sans commencer par saluer la mémoire du ministre pakistanais Shahbaz Bhatti, dont l'infatigable combat pour les droits des minorités s'est achevé par une mort tragique.
Shahbaz Bhatti, a Catholic who had been Pakistan's Minister for Religious Freedom, was gunned down last year after speaking out against his country's blasphemy laws, which call for the death penalty for anyone found guilty. Meanwhile, the lawyer and supporters of a Pakistani Christian woman sentenced to die after being found guilty of blasphemy have received death threats of their own. A report from the website Asia News did not provide any details of the threat. The legal team has prepared an appeal in the case of Asiya Bibi, a mother of 5 who says she was found guilty of blasphemy after being falsely accused by Muslim co-workers. Bibi is currently being held in solitary confinement in a prison in Pakistan's Punjab region. From Northern Ireland, a Catholic teenager says he was beaten by a loyalist gang during a movie production in Belfast. The 18-year-old told the Irish News that the attack occurred after filming a scene for a movie titled The Good Man. The teen says he was dragged from a car and managed to temporarily escape before being chased down and beaten. The teen says the gang used a derogatory term for Irish Catholics and only stopped the beating after they believed he was dead. The Philippines lifted a terror alert on Tuesday following the conclusion of a 22-hour-long Catholic parade in the nation's capital of Manila. The Philippines president had issued a warning over the weekend about a possible terrorist attack during the procession of a life-size statue of the infant Jesus known as the Black Nazarene. The president said the threat was not big enough to cancel the event. More than 8 million people turned out, but attendees were forbidden to bring any cell phones or fireworks. Well, back in this country, the Bishop of Cleveland says his diocese has brought in more than $19 million through the sale of closed churches. At a news conference on Monday, Bishop Richard Lennon says close to $5 million of those proceeds went to pay closing expenses and debts of parishes that were shut down, and close to $8 million more went to other parishes and to charity. The nun selected by the Vatican to investigate women's religious life in the U.S. has issued her final report. According to EWTN News and Catholic News Agency, Mother Mary Claire Millay has concluded her 3-year investigation. Millay says that although there are concerns that need attention, the enduring reality is one of fidelity, joy, and hope. Millay will also submit reports on close to 400 religious institutes in the U.S. From Canada, a bishop who pled guilty to possessing child pornography has asked to be laicized. Last week, Bishop Raymond Leahy was sentenced to 15 months in jail, but then set free after being credited for time served. Leahy was arrested after authorities at a Canadian airport discovered child pornography on the bishop's computer. Now, if the Vatican grants Leahy's request for laicization, the former bishop would be stripped of all priestly functions. He would be allowed to hear the confession of dying patients and would still be bound by his vow of celibacy unless the Pope dispenses that obligation. Meanwhile, Los Angeles Archbishop Jose Gomez is urging Catholics to pray after the retirement of an auxiliary bishop who revealed he fathered 2 children. In a letter, Gomez says it's understandable for people to feel disappointed, confused, and angry. Last week, the Vatican accepted the resignation of Los Angeles Auxiliary Bishop Gabino Zavala, who revealed that he was the father of 2 teenage children who were living with their mother in another state. The Los Angeles Archdiocese has offered spiritual care along with financial aid to help pay for the children's college education. Well, a statue of John Paul II that received attention for all the wrong reasons is getting a new look. The news comes following unflattering media reports and complaints from people who have visited the statue, which was unveiled in May outside Rome's Termini station. The Vatican's newspaper said the statue head was excessively spherical. An Italian visitor said it reminded him of Mussolini, while an American tourist said the statue looked like one of those weird creatures from Star Trek. A panel appointed by the mayor of Rome has determined that the statue of the late John Paul II will be given a new head. Its cape will be modified and its outer coating of paint will be touched up. Stay tuned, there's more currents ahead. When we return, Haitian Catholics gather for a gala celebration in Queens.
And tonight we come to celebrate that land was welcome us. Here we have the opportunity to have a better life.
And finally tonight, we're just a couple of days away from the 2nd anniversary of the devastating earthquake on the island nation of Haiti. The magnitude 7.0 quake killed 220,000 people and affected 3.5 million overall. It left a path of destruction, leveling much of the capital, Port-au-Prince, including the city's cathedral. Well, 2 years later, and though rebuilding continues in their home country, the faith of Haitian Catholics is as strong as ever. This past weekend at the Immaculate Conception Center in Douglaston, Queens, the Brooklyn Diocese Haitian Apostolate gathered for a gala celebration.
Over the years, with the help and work of Bishop Guy and his people, we have seen the Haitian Apostolate almost being implemented all over the United States. Everywhere we have Haitian people, the Haitian Apostolate is present.
Well, tonight is our annual fundraising, and they do the fundraising for the Haitian Apostolate. And as a center, they do so many different types of services. And of course, like everything else, we need money to survive, to run the administration and to do the services for the population.
We have come a long way. We had the boat people. It was very tough for us, coming to New York, to live in New York and to settle in New York. And tonight we come to celebrate that land was welcome us and as a community and we are grateful that here we have the opportunity to have a better life.
The Haitian community is very strong in number in the Diocese of Brooklyn, devoted. And even when Haitians have a hard time, they are in church.
We should be proud of the work that we are doing to evangelize and to keep the faith among the Haitian people in the United States.
In such a large country, we are vast and spread apart. These are these opportunities where we come together closely as a tight-knit. We get to see one another, and we get to see what we have to offer to the community.
None of this would have been possible without the National Center. We believe that the National Center is, the glue that keeps all of us together.
Now, with the internet, we've actually been able to become a little closer knit. It's all about trying to get on and creating more blogs and so on and so forth, and getting the younger ones already in there, and then trying to get the older ones to participate as well.
You have to hope, and tomorrow, you have to have a vision for tomorrow. If you have vision, you have hope. If you have hope, you see further than where you are.
Whenever we go and whatever we do, remember who we are and where we come from. And because we have faith in God, God will bless us. Everything is about Jesus. With Jesus, everything is possible. Search for Jesus, find him, or be found by him and serve him.
And that is all for this edition of Currents. Be sure to visit us online at currentsny.net. You can also connect with us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And if you have a question, a comment, or even a story idea, email us. The address is dropusaline@currentsny.net. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for watching and have a great night.